Well, hello. Almost didn't start because I was mesmerized by the crowds in the intro video. But here I am. Just came out of a meeting, last one of the day. It's now 9 o'clock where I'm at, and I'm still trying to get into my English mood. So hopefully you will understand what I'm saying. So welcome to Jasper's laboratory, where we'll be doing some session preparation. And this time I've made the title A Dark Harvest, and that's because of in the previous episode I got the idea. I think Ashley said something about that, where we could do something with crops, or it might have been Dave, really. I don't know anymore. Crops that got corrupted by the fact that the energy that crops absorb was corrupted or something. And so I thought that would be a nice title for this one, where we do an adventure that has to do with failing crops, but we won't touch the real thing yet, like the thing we are foreshadowing. If you want to know something about foreshadowing, watch the two previous episodes. It was a difficult topic, and I hope I got it right for everyone. So give me some comments on YouTube so I can incorporate them in my next episodes. I thought it was kind of a bit of a different take on session preparation than the Goblin Cavern was, and so I hope everybody understood what I had to say. Let's do some socials. We have socials. They can be found under !socials. Michel will probably do that right now. And there you find our link tree, and the link tree will link to everything. Follow us on Twitch and YouTube, especially because that helps us grow our channel. So hope to see you there. Next Monday will be another parallel projections at 9:30 Central European Time by Michel, who will be finishing Oxenfree. And yes, you did do it correctly. And he has put a vote on our Discord for another what game you will be playing next poll, so to say. So if you want to have some influence on what we do on those Monday live streams, then go there. Then the day after that is Talking Void with Jin, and we'll be discussing total party kills and how it happened and everything. Bit of a throwback to an earlier. Well, we already did player death, but this really has to do with the whole shebang dying. And then the week after that, on Monday at 9:30 again, it will be the Precipice of Dreams again. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, because yesterday we finally did another episode again, and that had been 6 weeks in the making, so to say. And I love that we got to play again. It had a bit of a getting into the groove again, but I think we got there in the earlier parts of the session. So welcome to Jasper's laboratory. And now I forgot to put the other intro ready. But no, I didn't. Man, imagine that, I didn't. So here we go. And we're back. Short introduction, but I still love it. I love the fact that all my maps are shown there. I will be adding some maps in the future through this show, I hope. So those will probably be added someday, but they have to be maps that have a bit more of a an oomph to them, so to say. They have to be carefully prepared maps. I won't do all the simple drawings there. Where's the time for some prep in Jasper's lab? Didn't I do that at the start? It's time for some prep in Jasper's lab. There we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do is talk to you about our next part in the adventure. It was never my intention to do like a continuous adventure. I wanted to prep according to my own sessions, but since we started in Pleasantville and we made a journey where we got waylaid by some goblins and then went to a goblin cavern, and in a way returned some casks or resolved that, I think. The party by now is probably like level 2, and they exist of 4 general characters, like a cleric, a wizard, a fighter, and a rogue type of character. So you have kind of all these roles present in your party, and now you want to really start getting into designing an adventure that has their interests, is challenging, and has something unique that you made for them. And you want to start foreshadowing some stuff, you know. So what are we foreshadowing again? We are foreshadowing the fact that Umbra, who is the daughter of Lux, is trying to overtake her father. It's probably her and him, I don't know. And she's trying to do it because she found forces in the darkness where who spoke to her and told her that she could have more power. Then she started this. Let me do the correct pronunciation, because otherwise we'll be confused in the end. The cult of Tenebris, and Tenebris is Umbra, so that's the thing that's happening. And the sun got blotted out recently, which had something to do with an experiment of one of the cult cells, so to say. And now all across the world, which is inside, is like a hollowed out sphere where the sun is in the middle, and gravity pulls you to the outside of the sphere. So if you look up, you see the sun just as normal, but in a way you can see behind that sun as well, and see the world again. All these cults are starting to do their own experiments with photosynthesis and bending light, making shadows, casting darkness, and that kind of stuff. And then there was this great idea where crops might be influenced by this. So I wanted to have an idea about what's happening there. So it's not the same people in chat, except for Michel, of course. Thank you for joining us, Michel. I needed that catchphrase. Yeah, well, I have to remember to put it in. Let's do some session prep in Jasper's lab. Here we go. So what do we have to do? We have to set the stage, so to say, for the next part of the adventure. And I think that once our heroes returned from the Goblin Cavern and either resolved it peacefully with the goblins that were there and banished the other hobgoblins that were invading, and or they resolved it with violence and they just killed everyone in there. I don't know. Might be a bit murder hobo-y, but then again, this is what I was alluding to. Sometimes you just have to kill the monsters, and if you can see them as a monster, then maybe you should do that instead of setting them free all the time. The sharp jacket and the catchphrase work really well together. Well, thank you. Yeah, still my work clothing. So here you can see how I would normally look, except for my the pandemic coupe I'm having, which is long hair, but I love long hair. So what I was thinking is that we have to know two things. We have to know what is happening for real and what the players will be discovering, and what might be happening according to them. And possibly they could investigate further and discover the true cause of what is happening, but this is my train of thought, what I wanted to do. And I've done this before. I will give you an example soonish. There's this field, and the crops have started turning, a bit of, what is it, Stranger Things Season 3, where all the crops started, decaying. So that's happening across some fields, and everything is going mushy, and things are sagging in, and that's because of energy that's taken from the fields, from these different grains or pumpkins or corn and stuff. The English dapper, not the Dutch one, although that would work too. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, indeed. I understand. I'm very dapper and I'm very dapper. And so this energy is coming from these greens, and they are forming an entity. But to the players it will be like the entity is corrupting the grains and the pumpkins and everything. So when they see this entity sliding across the fields, they see the crops decaying as he gains more strength, so to say. That was my initial idea of what we are going to prep. But then the real reason is that there in the vicinity of this field, there's this cult who have made an underground basement, which is below these fields. And they can discover it, but then they have to go to the nearest hamlet, where there is a little church and some houses around that, which is an isolated community, which has their own little walls. And then in the cellar of this church, there's a secret door which leads to stairways and corridors and the old mine shaft. And then there's the laboratories. Laboratories. Here you go. It's all in the show, where they experiment on this. On bending light or destroying light, whatever, and they accidentally pulled light from their surroundings, and they died in the process, so to say. So they might encounter a village where there have been a few deaths, or the hamlet might be in a bit of disarray, because not everybody is dead, of course, but those who were in the experiment are dead. So there might be a hook there for some reason, but we'll not go into that hook right now. But we have to take into account that things really happened, and this is part of the foreshadowing, that if you have to know the actors, as I've told you before, that are doing the real thing, because if there is no true reason to this, then why would you even bother making this part of the adventure, so to say? So what we'll be tackling as the main thing is that there's this field, and there's these crops, and there's a monster that's drawing the light from the stuff, the energy, so to say. And because we want to have it be somewhat multi-phased, something is happening at the border of these fields as well, which will be their first encounter. So we have a first encounter where a couple of farmers are having problems, and let's say that one farmer got wounded in the field when energy got sucked out of a pumpkin, and it went through him, and now he's kind of feeling very ill. He will recover, but then we have this sense of things that are happening, and a few of these small entities will appear in the vicinity, which might make it look so that they are the cause of the corruption, so to say, and they will attack. But then they hear the ground shake, and in the distance they see a bigger entity roaming across the fields, and that is quickly draining up energy from the crops, and it is growing, and they have to do something about it, because if it's let loose on the world, the whole thing will go pear-shaped. What do we think of that, chat? Chat is not that busy this evening, but it will be on YouTube, so. Terrifying. Okay, that's a good answer. So for this, we will not be drawing a map this time, because we have fields, and fields are lined with paths and roads, and you can draw it however you want. The only thing you have to know is that there is a road beside a field where there possibly is a hey, good evening, Uncharted Creed, where there's this road besides a field where the farmers will be who have and one of these farmers will have the touch of the creature that came out of the crops. So Uncharted Creed, for you, we are designing an apparent reason for the decay of some crops, which is that there's this entity that's taking all the energy from the crops. But the real reason is that a cult of Tenebris, who we talked about in the foreshadowing part, has done an experiment and created this creature that is now roaming free across these fields and is taking in the energy. And they've all died. They can be discovered, but they don't have to be discovered. That's the thing that's foreshadowing. And later they will encounter these creatures again, and they will be thinking, wait, now I understand what happened. And then later on, a connection will be made between these creatures and the blotting out of the sun in episode 1, and then they're starting to think, whoa, this is kind of big, you know. So the party is level 2 by now, and a level 2 party has access to one attack, melee or ranged, possibly 2 if they have 2 weapon fighting, some spells, a very small amount of hit points, and an armor class that varies greatly. In normal cases, if you allow for the best armor in a party, one might have a full plate with a shield, and then that party member would have an armor class of 20, could be. The wizard will probably have an armor class of like 11, so that's kind of the scope of the armor classes. But if you really have that tank who throws everything into his armor, then you can think of an armor class of 20. And then the other two, the cleric kind of thing, will be at 14 to 16, possibly 18 even. And a rogue kind of character will be anywhere from 13 to 16 or something. So those are kind of the things you're pitting your monster against. So now we are really going to some things concerning monster creation. And I'm really loving this because I love creating monsters. And I think it's an art in itself. Why do I think this? That's because there are all these kinds of unwritten rules that go with designing them. And although in 5th edition the numbers vary very much, there are still some things to consider. So I'm going to design a monster as I would be designing a monster myself. And we have a new screen for that. So here we go. Hope you can all see it. Probably, yes. Yeah, it's the thing I'm worst at as a DM. Creating monsters. Is that what you meant? Well, the funny thing is that Roger and me, Roger is the Dungeon Master from the Precipice of Dreams, and myself are really good at designing monsters, if I might say so. We differ in our strategies. We don't always agree on how we handle stuff, but in general, we know what is strong, what is weak, and why things are strong and weak, and why this is good for your adventure and stuff. Now the funny thing is, in any edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you always have the monster manual and manuals, and if you read the first one compared to the 3rd or 4th one, whatever might be out there, in 5th edition it's more like Volo's Guide to Monsters, or what's the other one? Volo's Guide to Monsters, and see if I can't come up with that one. Mordecai and Stone of Foes. where you see that the monsters get stronger for the same challenge ratings. And this is because, I think this is because they didn't experiment enough with the 5th edition monsters in the monster manual before they come out to really find the balance, or the players might not have been intimate with the rules enough to find the exploits in every monster. And then there's the thing, it's really stronger in 5th edition than it's in previous editions. There's quite a big difference between monsters with the same challenge rating. I can show you this. Let's go to the other one for a sec. So this, can you even see that? I don't think you can, right? I can't. I can keep it up for a bit. This is a brass dragon wormling. It doesn't really matter. Now, a brass dragon wormling has 16 HP, which isn't that much. It has a breath weapon and it has a single bite attack, and that is how it handles itself in combat. This is a Dwergar, which has is also a challenge rating 1, but it has 26 hit points, and well, it can go invisible and can enlarge itself, and it has some other features. But it is so much weaker than the dragon, because you know what the dragon can do? It can fly. Flying is such a powerful thing in Dungeons and Dragons, and of course you can never exploit it that much in a dungeon or something where the ceiling is pretty low. But since it is the monster, you can incorporate the monster in any environment that you want. And of course the players can play with lairs and everything and really make the terrain suit their own needs, but more often if the enemy is intelligent enough, it will not go in that direction. Of course, when a Dwergar turns invisible and attacks you out of a nook or cranny or something, then of course it can have an advantage, but after that it can't run away anymore because it doesn't have the speed to get away from the party. Uncharted Creed says, not long ago I got Peterson's Cthulhu Mythos for 5th edition. Still need to go through that though. So maybe there's something in there. We'll probably have some kind of insanity score that's not normal for Dungeons and Dragons. Interesting though. So, and then there are a lot of other creatures, you know. This one is 24 hit points, and then you have the whole convoluted system that's described in the Dungeon Master Guide, where you have to come up with how strong your party is and what they can survive or not, which is totally arbitrary because there is also this thing called now I can't come up with the term, like numbers. There's numbers, let's put it that way. The size of each group determines the strength of each group. If you have 4 kobolds instead of 1 Dwergar, those 4 kobolds can attack 4 times. They have an attack modifier of like +3 or +4, while the Dwergar can attack once with a +4 attack modifier. So that's much more scary, even though the damage output of the Dwergar is bigger for a single attack. Those 4 attacks that might all hit do a lot more stuff, especially when they confront the wizard that we just talked about has an armor class of about 11. Especially when they are being strategic and using bows and stuff. So it is really difficult to think of a creature that could defeat a second level party on its own, or has a challenge rating of 2, and that has to mean something compared to the number of characters that are in the party. So a character, for example, Brass Dragon Wormling gives you a challenge rating of 1, has 200 XP, and if we compare that to the XP charts which are in the Dungeon Master Guide, I think you will see that a second level party of 4 it would be an easy encounter, but if you make the setting just right, it will be a very hard encounter. Although magic might fail it in some way, but who knows, right? So when we are going to design our own monster here, let's go back to this beautiful screen with which Roger did. The left part is a Google Sheets format which Roger did, and then the right part is a Word document where I can write some stuff down. And we'll be doing the big baddie. We'll be designing that, and then we'll be talking about using statistics from another monster for the smaller creatures. So that is how we're going to do this. So we've talked about the strength of CR, the strength difference in the same CR or challenge rating of monsters in Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, it's a homemade sheet. Yeah, I can fill it in, and it will look great. I've decided to do it this way. I could also have used, for example, the 5th edition homebrew page, which is wonderful. You can make these whole beautiful sheets in the style of Dungeons and Dragons, but then you'll have the problem that I'm writing code while you'll be looking at the outcome and everything, and that will be pretty bothersome because everything will shift constantly. So I'll be using this one. I added some code into this as well, so that some things are displayed correctly at any time. Challenge rating, a level 2 party which should have with a deadly encounter, that would mean they have to fight 4 of these brass dragon wormlings. Well, either you're a very bad DM and you don't kill them with 4 dragon wormlings, or there's something very wrong with the power level of your party, because they will certainly wipe on that. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can lose that fight. It is a deadly encounter, of course, but it's a very deadly encounter. And this is the difference between... Okay, so where I really got a sense of balance is in 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. And although there's a lot of things wrong with 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of things right as well. For example, the way they calculate how strong an encounter is pretty good. For example, if you have a 4-level party of 1st level characters and you encounter a 1st level character, that is an easy encounter which you can have like 5 of on a single day, and then you still have a lot of chance to end the day living. For every doubling of the number of characters you meet, the challenge rating goes up by 2. So if you encounter 2 1st level creatures, then the challenge rating is 3 of the encounter. If you encounter 4, then the challenge rating is 2 plus 2 again, so it's 5. And now this is interesting because an encounter 4 levels higher than your own is a deadly encounter. And imagine this: you have a party of 4 1st level characters against a party of 4 1st level characters, which is balanced, which means it is deadly because you have 50% chance to fail. Except that there are 4 players and only 1 dungeon master, so he has to think of all the tactics of 4 characters at the same time compared to those of the enemy. Then you've got the whole very strange experience thing in 3rd edition. I will not go into that because that was made it hard, because you had to have 13.333 encounters to get to level up with in the same challenge rating and stuff, which it was really strange how they did that. Experience depended on your current level compared to the level of the encounter and all these things in between, and you had level adjustments, effective character levels and stuff. But there's a kind of perfection in this way that they made the doubling and the +2 challenge rating thing work for, at least for the logic of equal parties meeting each other. You won't find that in 5th edition. It is really strange. And of course there are all these rules of subtracting stuff and adding stuff because they're with larger numbers, but Let's just say that if you have a first level party and you encounter another first level party, that the chances are 50-50, and that is a deadly encounter. So if you have a second level party and you want to make a deadly encounter, you have to consider the total damage output of that encounter compared to the hit points it has, compared to some of the armor class it has, and then of course the abilities that it has. Now, if you make a single creature encounter, that creature must be really sturdy to be able to defeat the party. Because it has there's this other things, and that is the bounded accuracy thing in 5th edition, where all things are designed around the idea, at least in monster stat blocks, that there should be about like a 65% chance to hit a monster, which means that when a party attacks attacks a creature, 2 out of 4 and sometimes 3 out of 4 hits will hit that creature every round. Then there's the other thing, that damage is preloaded in 5th edition. So the output in the first round will be higher than in later rounds. It would be much cooler if it would be reversed, that you build up to your ultimates, so to say, but they didn't do that. And there's something to say for that as well, because why wouldn't you spend your deadliest attack first, especially if you know that the encounter you're encountering is the harshest thing you will do on that day. And this is where you can excel as a dungeon master, by planning multiple encounters but making them kind of logical in one day, so they have to spend all their resources, but still give them a hint that they shouldn't put all the resources into the first encounter. And I think that's what you see in the Precipice of Dreams. Roger does this really well, where you can chain up multiple encounters, or he can chain up he can make other things enter the encounter to make it interesting again, and give the players a sense of dread, where you really know that you have to pull everything out until the end. And I think, for example, that Eric is by now learning that he has to use his action surge later in combat to be the most effective fighter/rogue that he can be. It counts for me as well. I'm always thinking of, should I use my spells on the first encounter, or should I shift into my hollow form in the last encounter, or should I already start spending it at the start? But I'm so flexible when I do these shifts, but I will exhaust myself from my resources, especially because I've kind of got Warlock spellcasting, and that only lasts for 2 spells and then I'm done. And I don't have cantrips. That's where my hollow form comes into play. Okay. Oh yeah, so we're going to the creature soonish. The other thing that I wanted to give an example out of my own campaign, where I did some foreshadowing, which initially didn't seem like foreshadowing. So I had an animal companion of the druid in my party of 5 players at that point, come to the city that they lived in, because he was walking around in the woods and everything, and the stag got them to get the party to this sawmill that was just outside of the borders of town. When they got to the sawmill, there was a barn as well, where they kept some cattle next to the. Well, anyway, it was a kind of double thing, and they found slaughtered cattle, and they saw this like squirrel kind of thing crawling across the floor, and it had the same color as the cattle, and the cattle had been skinned. So this was the first time that they encountered this creature, and soon they found that there was. I think the daughter was still alive, but the mother and the father had been slaughtered by these creatures, and these creatures had taken off the skin and used it as their own. Now, the thing that these creatures did was that they stripped the skin, and they multiplied when they stripped the skin, because they had more skin to use for their own thing. They were called the Hidden, and they could hide very well. And then once there was enough of them, they could combine into a bigger creature, and they could like make a bellow out of their body and make a sonic attack, so to say, that hurt the more they grew in size, because they would take over more people. So this was an isolated incident, and they found that the living space had tunnels below it where these creatures had probably come from, and there was this encapsulated creature as well in there, which foreshadowed some other things. But they soon found that these creatures came from these tunnels, and then they defeated the last one of them, and they brought the daughter to her aunt in the city, and she lived there after that. And then much later in the adventure, they came to know the Hidden as the ultimate weapon of one of the big bad evil guys, who had a crown that dominated them and could send whole swarms of them to other places, which became these gargantuan creatures that really made their sonic blast go over the whole city and destroyed the city and stuff. So that's they encountered the creature before. They even encountered the solution before. Were made aware of the solution of how to control these creatures, and then they came to know that the solution was in the hands of their enemy, and the enemy attacked the city before they could do anything about it. They could have done it, but they didn't pursue that road. And so there you have what foreshadowing can do. So in this case, when we make this creature, they will know its tactics by the end of the session, and then at the later stage they will get to encounter another creature which is the same size or possibly a bigger size, or there are more of them, or they are controlled by creatures aligned to these creatures or by the cultists. I don't know. And they'll start thinking, okay, I know this one. We have to dodge its blast attack, and we have to swipe at its heart, and we have to punch out its eyes, and then we're okay again. But then the threat has become much bigger, and it refers to a much larger scope of the adventure. So that's what we're going to do with this creature. No long introduction, but I think this is important when you're going into making a creature, that you understand why you are making it and what it can do then. So you're still seeing that screen, right? So the first thing we'll have to do is come up with what does this thing look like and why is it? And I wanted to take your input for this. I will go into the technical stuff to make it a second level encounter later, but I want to have your input so we know what it would look like. What does a creature look like that sucks the energy from crops and stuff and grows in the process, and what does it do? And yeah, so that's what I'm going to ask you. I have a sip of water in between because, man, I've been talking the whole day. And what is it called, of course. So since I was talking about Stranger Things. Yeah, well, we can take I see it now as a big creature. A big creature, okay. What is big? Like large? So multiple legs, okay, there we go. Multiple legs. Black gray skin, yeah, okay. Now I'm seeing a gray render in front of me, yeah. Well, hi. Yeah. So, this hulking creature with grayish skin towers over you. It has multiple legs and arms. Yeah, okay, yeah. It has a weird head. It is tall. arms, which end in... Does it have claws? Does it have claws? Does it have tentacles? Does it have like smoke-like thingies? Or does it have fists? It sucks the energy with its legs. Okay, so the part that's on the ground sucks up the energy, and then it's kind of a high creature that has multiple arms which do stuff towards protecting itself, so to say. Or in the other way, protecting itself, like smashing stuff. The ending points. Okay, yes, okay, so it has... Yeah, okay. It has multiple legs and arms which end in points. 4 legs are draining the energy from the ground around it. While the arms are there to protect itself against... Man, this is always my thing. Against its enemies. The elongated head has no discernible features and even lacks eyes. Could use more to attack and protect with. You can jam 4 in the ground and use the rest to attack. Yeah. Against its enemies, of course. The ground around it withers as you see it move towards you. You can use the energy to buff its skin to certain needs. Yeah, that's a good idea. So we already have some stuff. It will have multiple attacks, which is great for an enemy that will defeat a party. So then there, it probably does stuff by pulling energy out of the ground, and it can buff its skin to certain needs. Okay, now it's a larger creatures, so. Yeah, or focus into energy blast or some sort. Yeah, that will be cool. I like that, like a cone attack in front of it. Then, yeah, okay, we can go with that. A secondary title, short-lived but danger. Dangerous. Always has some kind of that. So also the corrupted ground, when you stand in it does something. Yeah, well, it could have kind of an aura around it or something. If you start your turn, it does blah blah blah. Probably necrotic damage or something, like a blight effect, right? Though immensely dangerous, and what do we call it then? We have to have a name for it by now. Don't you agree? I like names. Maybe make it a trade-off. Getting under it to attack makes attacks more effective, but you suffer the consequence of standing on the ground. Yeah, well, we could do that, although this is where 5th edition most of the time makes things easy. So we have to see if we can incorporate that in a way where it makes sense for 5th edition rules. Because I do like I like to do unique stuff, but I like to have the mindset of 5th edition in my head as well when I'm making encounters. Now, Roger would probably saying that that is nonsense, and I make these creatures much too complicated, but then he does so himself as well. So, a blighter, yeah, okay. Let's try to get the. I do not. He's here. Hello. I like the bright ID, but maybe do some light and darkness theme in connection with the bright thing. I'm a bit late. Because I love to do that. So maybe bright shade or something. Yeah, brighter might also. Let's call it the bright shade, or is bright shade a good monster name? What do you think? Let's also make it a monster. Going to add that first. Well, we're not really there yet, I think. We'll see about that. Okay, so we have bright shader. I'll go with that. Thank you so much. Now, what is it? It is large, although it's much more tall than it is. Big, so to say. What kind of creature is it? I don't think it's. Will this be an aberration? What do you think? Aberration makes it kind of aliens. White, yeah, white. Let's get some inspiration. I'm getting some inspiration here. I'm not doing it on the thingy. Yeah, something there. Aberration. Neutral aligned. I don't think. Does it have a will of its own, or is it demon? No. Really, a demon? Already? The demon has so many more implications. Like demon really comes from a certain place, and most often is like a punished mortal. Doesn't get summoned from a place. Doesn't get created in such a way. Abo is better. Yeah, we could also do like undead or monstrosity or something, but I like the aberration stuff myself. I think is it. I was just trying to throw a few things your way. Oh, thanks, Michel, because that makes me have to. No, I really appreciate it, because that makes me make others understand why I would choose certain things and don't choose other things, so to say. Because I think that you really have to think about the lore of these kinds of creatures as well. We want it to be alien indeed. But is it sentient enough so that it makes choices based on a moral code, or is it like neutral? Yeah, like that. So that would make it neutral, in my opinion. But we that's a whole other discussion as well. Might have some hive mind. Yeah, well, that is what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think that it, as it feeds, it also spurs kind of smaller versions of itself, which will not be designing that, but we'll taking some form of other creature and just modifying it in a way that it does, because really the most basic creatures have a single attack, have +4 to hit, and do a certain amount of a certain type of damage. Now, and so we could just get an armor class of 13, have it have 8 hit points, have it have an attack of +4, and do 1d4 plus 2 necrotic damage, and then we have this creature that spawns from it, and it has a movement speed of, well, maybe a bit more than the big one, well, it could just be 30, but it could also be 40, so that you can have them jump around quickly and attack the party from different angles and that kind of stuff. Might have some hive mind. Yeah, well, okay, but a hive mind almost always implicates a kind of intelligence. So if you would have make it have a hive mind, well, that's what the aberration thing almost implies, right? I can understand that you would choose that, but then we're going into when you have a hive mind. Well, you have the rats, the cranium rats, of course, which start out really stupid, but once they get to a certain amount of hives, they really evolve a hive mind. But then that wouldn't fit the need to feed as a thing on its own again. Drone, yeah, a drone would work. So maybe it's not. It has a hierarchy where the big one is kind of the boss, and he can send. Yeah, maybe it is a hive mind. Yeah, maybe it's a hive mind. Can send the other. Well, it would do the reverse with crops then. Now, okay, so there's a lot of things happening in chat. Now the thing is hierarchy, having drones like bees. Well, bees feed on flowers and stuff and spread the whole thingy, and that would be the reverse of this thing. So maybe the smaller ones bring the energy from the crops they invest back to the big one, right? Yes. Okay. Yes. So it will have a hive mind function. So the big one is now called a bright shader. Then we have to have a name for the smaller ones. Though immensely dangerous, the bright shader has a very short lifespan, as it will be blocked once there is nothing left to feed on. Something like that. It can send out its drones called bright gatherers. That okay? Or rovers? Bright rovers? I like that. Bright rovers. To sustain him for a bit, but they will never travel further than 1 mile from him. As in the Dutch word for thieves, but also the explorer on Mars. Yeah, okay. Can we live with this short description? Can we call this a monster? Yeah. Oh, maybe it attacks furiously, using all rovers to protect him, and they are near him, but when he dies, the rovers fall as well. There goes the Uncharted Creed thumbs up. So that's cool. Let's make this a capital B. Okay. There we have our short description. Let me see what this looks like. Oh, it looks cool on stream, right? Man, I'm pretty proud of this. Okay, so now we have determined a couple of things. It will have more than one attack. Let's go to this to the thing again. It will have more than one attack. It will be the main thing to attack, and when it dies, the rovers will die as well. I just decided that. If you don't agree, we can still change that. It gets its energy from its surroundings, which means that it at least can always harvest something, unless everything within a mile is totally drained of energy. And yeah, it can withstand a party quite well. So now we have to decide on how much damage it is going to do, what exactly this surrounding area will do, if it can indeed make this cone attack. And there was a thing where it could plant its legs into the earth and have less attacks, but do something with that energy, or it can pull them out and have more attacks. Maybe we can resolve that in a feature where, for example, which is a thing that I liked. I think a Trolls in 3rd edition did that. When they hit with both claw attacks, they all automatically hit with a bite attack or something. And we resolve it in that way. So this is let's get into the technical stuff right now. Shall we try to? We can always return to an earlier stage, but let's first determine what kind of statistics this creature has, for example. Now, strength. I think this is mainly a strength-based creature, right? It will attack with these protrusions, these sharp objects, and that will probably hurt big time, right? So here we're going into where Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is a bit strange, because when you look at players, yeah, I think they are slow but powerful, and that's why they need the rovers to do things a bit more outside of their reach. So players can have a strength or any ability score up to 20, but monsters aren't limited by this barrier, and even low-level creatures can have kind of a large... isn't it Dex with its multiple legs? Let me first finish my train of thought. So monsters can have scores far higher than 20 or far lower, and this is the thing where you have to decide how many times do you want it to hit when it makes an attack. So this always has a relation to the number of attacks that you're having and the damage output per attack. And this is where we have to get a bit careful to not have too many abilities that it can use at once, because remember, the party in front of it, the mage will have about, well, if it's 10 hit points on average, well, the tank of the party might have 20, and the others are in between there, like 15. So you have a shared hit point pool of 60 in the 4-level party, and any attack that deals like 1d8 plus 4 damage could potentially drop the wizard immediately, and on a crit drop the other creatures, except for maybe the tank, in a single hit as well. So we want to have this be a powerful thing for a second level party, but we have to take into consideration what we are doing with these scores as well. So the powerful thing could be that it is a thing that lasts a long time. And this is where 5th edition gets a bit silly as well, because it has no... there's no... you can give it as many hit dice as you want without having to raise, for example, its base proficiency bonus to do stuff. And that is why... So you can give it as many hit points as you want, in a way. So when we... to make that feel alright, you often do have a higher constitution bonus. Now, to get back to the... Isn't it dexterity for its multiple legs? Well, is a cow dexterous? Multiple legs doesn't imply dexterity immediately. That's what I'm trying to say. It could be, but really the first thing you have to decide, is it a slow or a fast creature? Does it attack through finesse, or does it attack through brute force? And I think that makes your decision pretty clear what kind of score you would like to use. So I would go with strength in this case, because then, and this is arbitrary again, but then we can drop its armor class somewhat, so that the players can more easily hit it, so they can get through through its hit points and have a sense of achievement while it keeps hacking at them, and it's pretty scary to confront it. Also, their spells that allow for dexterity saves will have a larger success rate against this creature when they confront it. And for example, the rovers could be dexterity based. They might even have very few hit points, a bit higher of an armor class, still in range of the 5th edition rules I proposed earlier. And then, but they could be done in a single hit, for example. And they are the fast ones, and they are the dodgy ones, and they are scary when they come up close. Well, fair enough, says Uncharted Creed. Yeah, I'm just throwing it out. If you totally don't agree, please tell me. But that's. I also want people to learn how my mind works in this way. So now we have to get to the balance stuff. So if the tank is in front of this creature and takes the brunt, hey, hello, top-down tabletop. We're designing a monster, which is new. And this time we're designing the Blight Shader, which is a creature which has 4 legs that it sticks into the ground and sucks up the energy it gets from the crops. And it has like 4 more arms, probably, which it might not be using all of them at once, which can attack creatures within reach. And then it has a blast attack, and it has an aura effect around it, so that it is a hazard for a second level party. And it's all for the foreshadowing part that we did to the previous 2 episodes, where it is a creature that has been born out of experiments with darkness, but the party doesn't know it. It just knows that this creature is destroying crops outside of a village, and they've heard about it from a farmer that has been attacked by its rovers. We now know that they are called rovers, and they see it in the distance and they go and attack it, so to say. So, caught you up. And we're getting really technical in how we will balance this monster. So, as we all know, a first level character has a +5 bonus to about everything. If players start to look up stuff, then you just yell +5 and they say, oh yeah. And sometimes, like my Bowen Goodhart also has a +4 on certain stuff. That's because he's a cleric and a wizard combination, and he has a wisdom of 14 and an intelligence of 16. You might have a +4 and stuff, but mostly the things that are most important to you have a +5. Or the other on the other side, they have a difficulty class of 13 for spell for saving throws against their effects. Good evening. Oh yeah, you're reacting to that. So let's start taking this into consideration. This creature is attacking a second level party. You want to have it have kind of the same dynamic in its attack rolls and its damage output as the party itself would, but then it has to sustain a larger party. For an ability check, now we're going to determine what do you want it to hit, because it has many attacks. But let's say that it can use 2 attacks at once, or 3 or 4. Then when you make the strength score a +4, like an 18, then it will have a +6 to attack. I'll have to go now, but I will watch this back later. This is very interesting. Have a good one. Thank you, Uncharted Creed. And thank you for looking it up later. So now it has a +6 to attack. So this means that it will hit the medium armored creatures about 50% of the time. It will hit the wizard about 75% of the time, and the tank 25% of the time, or maybe 30%. What program are you using for this, Jasper? This is Google Sheets. It's a sheet done by Roger, but I modified it slightly so that it does some things for me immediately. And then for the right part of the screen, I'm just using Word or word processor with the same background color. But it looks great, right? Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it myself, at least. So we have to think about this, but what we can do is, for example, drop the dice sum. So we can make it so that every attack only deals a d4 of damage, and then it will be d4 plus 4, so it will be like a range of 5 to 8, and even if it crits, it will be a range of like 6 to 12, which has the wizard. It will allow for the wizard to survive even a critical hit once, possibly 2 hits in total, and the tank can stand in front of the creature a bit more. So we could do it that way. We could also just give it a +3 to attack to even make it a bit smaller, and then make its defensive features, like its aura that it has around it, do part of the damage for those creatures who need to come close. New sheet looks amazing. Thank you, here, Steves. Thanks for joining. Yeah, it really looks awesome. It is, well, as I said, it is by Roger. It's not by me, but yeah, I'm very glad that I got to use it. So I'm thinking that Strength 16 will be cool if it has more than 1 attack for against a second level party. This is really how I work, but I'm explaining it a bit more, of course, but I'm always tweaking these numbers to make it make sense. Because now we have to think about, what does this creature look? These arms might not be the sturdiest arms. It might just be flailing arms that are stretching, and that is why it has a +3 or +5 bonus to attack, instead of this hulking mass who really topples over everything and has this arm come crashing down and it deals 46 plus 10 damage or something. No, it's not like that. And I also think that we really have to limit what the attacks might do as well. I think that this attack, these arms are just that. They do physical damage. So now I have +3, and now this will probably be the main stat of this creature. So if it has any special no fin appendages, not too fin probably, or you don't want him to have fin appendages, what do you mean, Michel? Anyway, so this will probably be his main stat, which means that it would any difficulty check that would be used in features will probably be including this stat. So now we know that it will have +5 to ability checks, and the difficulty for to counter this will also be like that. Now, if we want creatures to have about 65% chance to hit, which is like normal 5th edition stuff, we can drop its armor class quite low. For example, if we have it at 13, we will hit it with an 8. An 8 is exactly 65% chance to hit. So is that where we want to have its armor class at? Because if we do, I realized that that would be confusing, but I meant, no, you're right, the arm should be thin, not super thick and chunky. Yeah, okay. Armor class 13 means that everybody would have a great feeling of being able to hit this creature. That's what armor class 13 says. If we want it to remain alive a bit longer, we might increase it or we might do something with a larger pool of hit points, which makes sense because it is draining energy from the ground and that's feeding its body. So now we might also know what these feet actually do. Might give him regeneration. I'm going to look up troll already because just to have it ready, so I have the right sense of what it would be like. It can heal him. Yeah, it can heal him. So low armor class, and then we probably have a lot of hit points. We know that because let's go to the Constitution score. A low armor class. Let's put this dexterity on 8. Now it's vulnerable to area of effect spells, which is great because the wizard wants to do something as well. It can of course shoot magic missiles. That's cool, but for example, if you're like Bowen, like my character, and Bowen Goodheart in this case, it would be cool if my create bonfire cantrip sometimes deals damage to this creature as well. That just feels okay. Then its constitution will be high because it's constantly draining stuff from the ground. So let's just make it 18 and have it at a +4 bonus. Now we said it wasn't really intelligent. And it isn't wise, it is just doing stuff. And then we come to charisma, which is always a bit of a strange score. But charisma, it protects against... What does it protect against? I think it protects against plane shift kind of things, so we don't really have to worry, so we can keep it at a natural 10. Then wisdom would mean that it will be able to be influenced by mental stuff pretty easily. But for me, that doesn't really make sense. Does it make sense for you that this would be a creature that's very easy to control? Will it just go wide? Let's get an example. Put a pen in there. I would say we don't want it to be controlled because it's a force that, yeah, indeed, not easy to control, right? So that would mean that in this condition immunity section, we would probably give it immunity to charmed effects. Now, because it is a force of nature, do we... yeah, there are all these conditions that you can... It cannot be blinded, for example. Right, that seems logic. It cannot be deafened because it doesn't have ears. It cannot be frightened or exhausted. Hello, Turk accented. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for the raid. So cool. Welcome to Jasper's laboratory, and welcome to our stream where we are designing a Blight Shader for Dungeons and Dragons and really going in depth to this particular thing. And we're now at the point where we are determining what these the protective qualities of these creatures would be. So probably something like that. Yeah. So these will be his, at least these will be his immunities. I think it, of course, just finished some Obra Dinn mystery and this looks very cool. Well, thank you. So thank you so much. You're so welcome. So I hope you will enjoy yourself here. Yeah, designing a monster is a great thing to do. And I think we're on a great path to making something out of this one. Right? So, because it was already kind of protected against charmed effects, maybe Jasper can give a quick summary of the creature. Yeah, so we are designing a Blight Shader, which is a creature that sucks, in this case, sucks the energy out of crop fields and grows from that. It has blight rovers around it that harvest other crops for it and give the energy back to the creature. It is slow and it will eventually die because it gets spended because it cannot gather enough life anymore. But when it has done this, probably everything in the surrounding has died as well because it will drain the life out of everything. There's a farmer already being drained by this, and that hurt it quite a lot. And everything within 1 mile, which includes probably some farms in the area, will be under attack very soon unless the players do something about it. Now, come to think of it, they probably come across this thing when they are returning to their hometown of Pleasantville, the temporary hometown. And so they see this happening and they will get involved because adventurers will get involved. They could just walk away, of course, but that will probably not happen. So we're designing this for a 2nd level party, and that this means that we have to really take into consideration how much damage they can take and everything. Absolutely amazing time, and this sounds definitely fun to fight. Oh, cool. What we also have, this creature has blind sight. Because if it doesn't have blind sight, then it would not be able to see because it has no eyes or ears. And it probably gets its blind sight by sticking its feet into the ground. This also makes it blind outside of a certain range. The creatures do not have to know this, and this is also fun to play with. So blind sight can a small area or a large area, or it can even see out of the rover their eyes. But let's make it for himself, make it 60 feet. And then in the right kind of cannot blind beyond this range. So beyond this radius, sorry. So now we have it will probably, because it is kind of a necrotic creature, let's make it vulnerable to radiant damage. And let's make it at least resistance, or let's make it immune to necrotic damage. Because it has a strange physiology, let's Psion, poison damage. Let's give it resistance to that, but let's not make it resistant to everything, because that's not great. It's not fun, even though I do this a lot myself and give damage reductions like mad, but it is not fun to have the players always have their main damage type taken away. So, for example, most damage types at lower levels are either piercing, bludgeoning, or slashing damage. You don't want to have every creature there encounter have that kind of resistance, so that they can only do half damage against this creature. Just make them feel like they can hit it pretty hard and compensate somewhat for hit points. So resistance is against poison damage. Skills, perception, probably. And here we go into the math again. So perception is wisdom and proficiency. So it has a +1 bonus because it is -1 +2. And then it also has something that is more congruent with its strength, which is athletics. And that is a +5. Right? Now the saves, I think, are among the strength and the con, which will be good saves. So those are the only things that we have to put down. If I'm going too fast, please tell me. If you have any questions or of why I'm doing stuff, please tell me. But I wanted to have this block finished in a kind of way. Strength +5, Constitution +6. Those are its main saving throws. If you said, I think you always have to do those with capital letters. Don't know for certain now. Oh, skills as well, I see. Oh. Not really consistent. Passive perception, always have to include that as well. That's 11. Perception is again with a capital letter. So this isn't really important, but I just want to make it look good for our first creature that we are designing for this series. Languages: none. Can communicate telepathically with its rovers. And challenge rating, we set 2. Oh, let's align that. Okay, so that would be my suggestion for this stat block. It makes total sense, I think. It can still be radiant damage, and this is necrotic damage. It can still is that true? No, I don't have to put damage behind it. Oh, that's strange. Well, there you see, we don't know it all. We're still being surprised by these 5th edition things after all those years. Yeah, this makes total sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to you as well. I'd love to hear from you if you think that I did something wrong here, but I don't think I did, but you know. Now we said it is a bit slow itself. You don't want to have it too slow, and a normal speed that for a slow creature would be 20 feet. It might be because it has to pull its legs out of the earth and can't move really fast, and it has its rovers to attack creatures. Rovers are really kind of missiles with hit points, right? They don't have that many hit points. They hit, and if they aren't taken care of, they keep hitting, but otherwise they are just doing stuff like that. Initiative is -1, and now we come to the hit points stuff. So let's talk about damage output from a second level party. Considering that 50% to 75% will hit every turn on this creature, and there are some spells involved which might tweak it some bit, because you either have like a firebolt cantrip doesn't do that much, but if a cur casts guiding bolt, for example, it does 46 damage immediately, and that is radiant as well, so that would be an average of 26 on this creature. So that would really hurt immediately. So we want to be able to but the normal melee weapon attacks deal like 1d8 plus 5 damage. No, plus 3 damage, and plus 5 if you have some specialization, like a barbarian or a fighter with weapon with one-handed fighting style, or something like that, or maybe an offhand weapon that deals some damage. Possibly a sneak attack, which adds d6 damage to possibly a base d6 damage, so it's 2d6 plus 3, which is an average of 10 damage. So that's let's just say that it will get 20 damage per turn. And that is when they are not dealing with the rovers that are surrounding it. So, and if they are lucky, they do 30 and maybe 40 damage. So this gives a sense on how much you wanted to give. And this is where you also have to decide how many rovers you want to have in play, because they will deplete the resources of the party very quickly as well. So if there are like 10, then we really have to drop the hit points on the Bright Shader, because they will be attacking the party even before the tank can get to this creature. And that will be an enormous strain on their resources. So this, if they are smart about attacking this thing and they can sneak up to it in a certain way, they will have the advantage and might down it pretty quickly. Considering average hit points, we already have to give it a lot of hit dice, so that to have it make sense of how many hit points it would have. But tactics might come into play as well. So, because it's a stupid creature, it will just react. And the rovers will react appropriately as well, and that will be difficult for the party to overcome. But in the end, it will go down pretty quickly unless the players are out of luck. But it's in the balance. It's a difficult balance. I'm ranting, right? Or am I still making sense? Please chat, tell me, am I still making sense? Oh, chat is so silent. I think I've stopped making sense then. I think you're making sense. Thank you. I think you got it down. Okay, cool. So then let's decide on how many hit points do we want to have. Shall we give it 8 hit dice? 8d10 plus 32 would be the number then. So 8d10 is on average 4 times 11 is 44 hit points, plus 32 is 76 hit points. That's what it would have then. Does that look right? Oh yeah, I can do math, by the way. 8d10 plus 32. 76 hit points. Looks good to me. It looks even better when we have him regenerate stuff. Right? So let's make that the first ability that we're going to add. We'll put 76 up there for now, and then if we don't agree at the end, we'll change it up a bit. So ability 1 is called. Well, it will be called. Will we do the regeneration thing first, or will we do the? Well, let's do. I think that when stuff gets into its circle, it has this necrotic aura, right? I think we decided upon that in an earlier stage. So let's don't have to be fancy about it. That will be the first feature, and dot. Now this always has a kind of thing like anyone starting its turn within 10 feet of the oh, here. No, let's not do that. Well, let's do it. Let's add some of the within 10 feet of the Bright Shader, because now we can change the name afterwards if we want to do it. And starting its turn within 10 feet of the Bright Shader suffers indifferent necrotic damage. 1d4 necrotic damage. easy feature. Will that be enough? Now, what does this do? Let's consider this feature. So we have a couple of creatures that will be attacking this creature, and the main one who will at least be attacking this thing will be the kind of tanky creature. You know, you always have the melee fighter or cleric or paladin or something barbarian that will be in front of this creature. Now, 1d4 necrotic damage passes through any early damage resistance the party might have, and at the same time it also becomes a danger for creatures who are either at 0 hit points, just have been raised above 0 hit points, or have no healing left in the party at all. So this will put a death save on something at 0 hit points, and it will be a contestant for clerics who are casting, for example, Holy Word, which is a ridiculously strong healing spell. On the other hand, if you have the luxury of having 2 players being able to cast Healing Words as a bonus action, which is pretty strong, then they will probably have no more than 3 spells each at second level. So they can't use that indefinitely. So this makes the balance awkward in a way, because when the party is too melee, I never pronounce that word right, but melee, is it melee? Heavy, then this might get very strong. They might consider stepping away from the creature, but if they do that, they provoke opportunity attacks. So that's another thing to consider. So this rolls an average of 2.5 damage, and you're hoping that if they are at 3 hit points it will be 2 damage, and if they are at 4 it will be no more than 3, and if they are at 20, then well, okay, you can suffer a couple of hit points of damage before you drop. But it is a very strong feature at early levels, because it isn't because of the amount of damage it does, but when it does the damage and against who it does the damage, and it is in excess of its normal attacks as well, of course. Regeneration. So let's see. I always forget how we have to do this. I make it a short one because I'm not going to write it out. Regains 5 AP at the start of its turn, unless damaged by radiant damage. I'm going to type that out better when I will probably make this a kind of official monster, put it on the Discord probably. But I think so. This is what it would regain, and this helps with the total hit point pool, because the longer they take to destroy the creature, the more hit points it will effectively have, unless they use the radiant damage type. But well, if you have a light cleric in your party and you have, well, not even a monk can do that on second level, so there aren't really that many options that would deal radiant damage, unless you consider the Sacred Flame cantrip and stuff. But let's hope that the cleric is busy doing other stuff or not, because you want them to succeed, right? And Healing Word can be paired with a cantrip, so radiant damage is a thing. Got to pop out, nearly dinner time here. Enjoy the rest of your creating, friends. See you Top Down Tabletop. Thanks for joining us for a short while. Hope you enjoyed it. Now 5 hit points. You can do 2, you can do 7, you can do 1 or 4 or whatever, and it doesn't really matter. 5 is like a normal amount of damage of hit points to heal in this case. So I think it's good if we keep it at that, and then if it's too powerful, then we just drop the hit points some. But I think that's all the abilities it needs. The other things we have to do is we are going to have to make actions now. So multi-attack. The bright shader can attack times whenever it takes the attack action on its turn. So we can put in 2 to 4. If it has 4 arms, we can make it 4 attacks. I wouldn't make it too many attacks. Or we can do it random, like 1d4, which is pretty cool, but it makes it disastrous when you have to make 4 attacks. On the other hand, we did say that because it has an attack modifier of +5, and when it's against the tank, it will have, well, less than 50% chance to hit. Might even go towards 25% chance. So in that case, 4 attacks, yeah, you could cope with that, because then he would do, because we said he wouldn't do that much damage, like 1d4 +3 each time. Then you could have it make 4 attacks and hope for the best or for the worst. I think it steps with its appendages, but they don't do a lot of damage. Yeah, so let's make it 4 attacks and see where we are at. And if somebody gets angry because thinks this is too much, then please say so. There are not sharp points. It also walks on it. They are not sharp points. It also walks on it. So what is it then? Bludgeoning? Because it really doesn't really matter in this case. That's the funny thing, that most creatures don't have a specific resistance to one of the 3 physical types of damage. It's either all or none of them. So you can imagine that it either walks like this or it walks like that, and you can see me on camera, right? Yeah, you can see me, and it just does this. So, and then you could call it slashing damage, because it does a bit like that. Yeah, I thought the appendages were like becoming points at the ends. That's what I thought. No, I was mentioning it because I said they don't do a lot of damage. Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's make it piercing damage, right? Plus, well, we know what it does for damage. Plus in the 4 plus 3 piercing damage. Yeah, points. Yeah. So this is its main attack. It has can attack 4 times as an action, and then the other thing it has. We call this bandages. And we call this, let's not make it too difficult as well. Now, this is always a thing, you know. We wanted to do an impressive thing where it sprays its necrotic thing that corrupts the earth, and it does this. Well, where does it even come from? Did we give it a mouth? Does it have a mouth? Does it come out of its body? Does it shatter for a while and spread its necrotic damage, or does it really shoot out of its face, like a breath weapon attack? What are we saying? Let's at least make it a cone attack, right? So we have to. We probably say. Sprays. What are we saying that it sprays? A cone from its head, yeah. Mouth area, yeah. energy. No, that's not sprays. A dehydrating life form at its in a 30 feet cone. Well, okay, that's interesting. Mouth area, so positioning matters. Positioning never matters, except for the fact that it is a cone, of course. So it has an origin somewhere on a square of the creature, but it always starts there, and it can position it any way it wants. Unless you, of course, mean that that the cone shape is the thing where positioning matters, because then you're right, of course. Space a dehydrating life. Dehydrating. I said life form here, but that's the wrong term. Dehydrating substance. Vertified cone. Creatures are allowed a dexterity saving throw that deals damage. Dexterity saving throw against a DC of 13. There we go. For half damage. Just in my mind and the cone. Yeah. So I think it would look something like this. I have to do the wording better, and I think for making it spread cooler and not having to roll too many d4s, 46 necrotic damage would be cool. So it's kind of an inverse. No, I just said the name. Guiding Bolt does necrotic damage instead of radiant damage, and it doesn't give the advantage on the next attack, but it can hit a lot of more creatures, so positioning is important. Is it an idea that with an attack it tries to pierce, grapple you, and then on a subsequent turn it can start to drain? It has so many abilities. Yeah, so yeah, we could do that, but I think sometimes like having less abilities is more eloquent, and especially at level 2. Although I must say that that Roger can do such stuff pretty well. But remember, this thing has rovers as well, and these rovers try to attack and block the other creatures as well, and probably deal 1d4 necrotic damage or something. So they are a threat as well, and they have to overcome them as well. So we can't put everything on this one creature. Do we have this scorer here? Oh, we have. Okay. Okay, that looks cool, right? And plunk. Oh, that looks so cool. Maybe the bright shader's bigger brother can do that. Yeah, maybe indeed. So the bright. This is the bright shader, and they have the bright brother. Rovers will try to grapple you and pull you to the corrupted area or cone area. Yeah, so I think that for this encounter, it is. They will. The implication of letting them deal necrotic damage is that they are picking up the life force, and you can put in their description that if they meet the bright shader again, they restore it for 2 to maybe 1d4 hit points when they come within 5 feet of it. You can put that into the stats of the Bright Rover. I'll probably make a Bright Rover stat block for as well, just because I like the thing that we're making currently. So yeah, let's do that as well. But I think that this is enough for this creature, really. I think Roger would agree with me. I don't know if he's still here, but this is strong. This is really strong. Imagine if we encountered this at second level with our party of 4, then I think we would have had a lot of trouble with it, especially with the rovers around it. Although I would like some feedback on it. Do you think that this is difficult enough? Chat? I think it is difficult enough. Yeah. I can live with that. Yeah, and it also depends on how many rovers you want surrounding it, you know. If you have 2 rovers surrounding it, then it's okay. But if you have 8 surrounding it, then it becomes a lot harder. So hide these ones. Hide. Oh. Hide. Now this isn't going to be a legendary creature, and I think it would be very challenging as well. Yeah, we don't want to have it have bonus actions or rare actions right now, so we're just going to hide those for this creature. So this would be the stat block of this creature, and I think we have made a really difficult. Oh, can you see that on screen now? Yeah, I can see it. That's ugly. Let's just pull this down. So, yeah, I think it's a very challenging encounter, especially when you are considering to have more creatures having. If you add a lot of rovers, then it would be very hard. So. To summarize, what do you have to prepare for this second encounter? Well, maybe the name of one of the farmers that gets attacked. So let's summarize again. The heroes are returning to Pleasantville. They are on the road and they are traveling through a landscape full of fields and farms. And they meet this farmer, which has just been harvested by a rover. So it is returning to the big one with a bit of energy from the farmer. It's 3 necrotic energy, it had 5 hit points, so it's near death. And he's just lying there, and they can see the creature going in, and there are 2 more of these small creatures coming in. So they defeat the 2 small creatures, then they make plans to defeat the big one, but they see that it's gaining strength. So they have to go there. It's in an open field, there is not much chance for cover, although, you know, if it's in a cornfield, you can make them approach it stealthily, let them consider that, but it is destroying its surroundings, so when they get near it, they still have to make a run for it. I think that's cool. If they have flying creatures among them, this creature is done. Crop circles, yeah. This thing can't defend itself against flying creatures, not even with its rovers. The only thing it can do is its necrotic blast within 30 feet of it. So if someone is stupid enough to come within 30 feet when they are flying, then this has a chance. But in a sense, an Averin like Solwing could defeat this creature on its own, although its damage output might be constantly negated by the regeneration output of this creature. You can foreshadow the creatures earlier in the campaign with crop circles in random places. We could, but then we don't have that sense that it is starting at this point. But we could, yeah. So they defeat the creature, and they don't really know its origin, but they have solved the mess, and they get thanked by the farmer, and they continue on their way. And they might have considered this a side quest, really. Something happened, but we know that in a small hamlet a bit further down the road there's a church which has a cellar which has corridors and mine shafts or stuff leading under these fields, where there are a couple of laboratories where they are experimenting with taking out the essence of light out of stuff, and this made for this brought this creature in existence. And they did this because they want to replicate the thing that happened with the blotting out of the sun. Whew. This is the main creature. I'm not going to develop the rovers right now. I already said some things about that one. Give it an armor class, give it 3 hit points, and make it do 1d4 damage, and have it be able to return some health to the Blight Shader. And there we go. We have enough content for, well, depending on how you want to stretch it and how involved you will get them with the farmers and everything, for at least half a session, maybe a whole session, maybe 2 sessions. You don't really need that much. Yeah, I must say I am pretty proud of it. I think it's really balanced. It makes sense with its stats. I don't think I've made any mistakes in the calculations. I have to do something about the wording, but we'll do that in the definite version. And I think that's where we'll leave it for this evening. And we ran a bit long anyway, and I think that's pretty cool, because you can talk about monster creation all you want. It is so cool to really think of every detail in a monster. And probably I forgot some things, but maybe I'll do a DM corner thing if I'm getting some feedback from, well, Michel or Roger or Eric or whoever, and do something on Discord. So join us on Discord and see the final product. And yeah, I'll put it in the official Dungeons and Dragons format, I think. Although I don't have art for it, so that's a pity. With that being said, we still have the Talking Void outro, which I'll be running soonish. But I enjoyed myself very much. I hope chat enjoyed itself very much. Can't wait till the next Jasper's Lab, but can't wait for the next Talking Void and the Precipice as well. And parallel projections, because I love Oxenfree. So join us, see our schedule on Twitch. When you click on the info button and there's nothing on it, will appear on the screen. And follow us on wherever, at least Twitch and YouTube, and join us on Discord as well. That would be great. And this video will be up later this week, I think. And this means that I'll be saying goodbye. And well, we did some session prep in Jasper's Lab. Bye.